7 Rules to Command Your Mind and Conquer Distraction. The Warrior Code. There is a quiet moment in every day when the world around you grows still, yet your mind refuses to join it. You sit, you breathe, you try to be present, but something slips. A small thought pulls you sideways. A memory tugs at your attention. A notification hums in the corner of your awareness. And before you even realize it, the moment you intended to live has already passed you by. This is how distraction wins. Not loudly, not dramatically. It wins in tiny steps, almost invisible, yet powerful enough to shape the person you become. We like to believe we are in control of our thoughts, that the mind follows our direction, the way a loyal companion should. But in truth, the mind is more like a restless wanderer, drifting the moment we loosen our grip. 1 unguarded second becomes 5. 5 become 15. And 15 become another day lost to the same patterns we swore we would escape. We tell ourselves we will focus tomorrow. We will be disciplined tomorrow. But then tomorrow arrives, and the cycle quietly repeats. What we rarely admit is how heavy this feels. Not on the surface, but deep inside, where our real intentions live. There is a subtle pain in knowing you are capable of more, yet constantly pulled away from your own strength. A quiet frustration in watching your attention scatter while the life you want waits patiently in the distance. This is the hidden battle inside the mind, the one no one sees but all of us feel. It is not a war against the world. It is a war against the small drifting within ourselves. As time passes, you start to sense the cost, the unfinished goals, the fragmented focus, the identity that feels slightly out of reach. And somewhere deep in that awareness, a question rises. Why is it so easy to lose control of our own thoughts, and so hard to reclaim them? The answer is not force or pressure. It is clarity. It is discipline. It is the ancient understanding that the mind must be led, not followed. Before we go any further, take a moment to subscribe, so you stay connected as we walk this path together. Because the journey ahead is not just knowledge, it is transformation. And now we step into the first of the 7 rules of the Warrior Code. Rule 1 begins with something simple but rarely practiced. Guard the gate of your attention. Every warrior starts here, not with force, but with awareness. The quiet ability to notice the exact moment your mind begins to drift. Sometimes it happens softly, almost kindly, as if the mind is trying to give you rest. You reach for your phone without thinking. You open a tab you never meant to open. You lose the thread of a task you were certain you could finish. None of it feels dramatic. It feels harmless. But then that harmless moment pulls you further than you expected. What we rarely admit is that distraction doesn't break into our lives. It walks in because we leave the door open. A small urge, a familiar habit, a comfortable escape, and the mind follows it without question. This is where the real work begins. Not in fighting distraction, but in catching the first quiet signal that you are slipping away. The slight tightening in your chest. The shift of your eyes towards something easier, the feeling of wanting to avoid the next step. These signals are invitations to take back control before the drift becomes distance. As time passes, you begin to recognize these moments more clearly. You start to see how one tiny choice changes the direction of your entire day. You notice how much strength there is in simply pausing, breathing, and choosing to stay with what matters. No battle, no noise, just presence. This is the warrior's first discipline, to guard the gate, not with tension, but with calm awareness. To understand that your attention is not an endless resource. It is a blade that dulls when left unprotected. And the more you watch your thoughts instead of chasing them, the more your mind remembers who is leading. That is the quiet shift. The moment you stop being pulled by impulse and start moving with intention. But guarding your attention is only the beginning. Awareness opens the door. Yet deeper discipline is needed to shape the mind from the inside. And that is where the next rule begins. Rule 2 asks for something most of us forget in the rush of daily life. Choose stillness before action. Not silence, not inactivity, but a deliberate slowing of the mind so you can see what is truly in front of you. There is a moment before every choice when your thoughts scatter, your emotions rise, and your instincts push you to react. But then, if you pause, even for a breath, something shifts. The noise fades. The mind clears just enough for you to meet the moment with intention instead of impulse. We often believe that speed is strength, that moving quickly proves we are capable. In truth, strength comes from clarity. A warrior does not strike because he is restless. He strikes because he understands the right moment to move, and that understanding only appears in stillness. The kind of stillness where the world softens for a second, where your thoughts settle like dust in quiet air, and where you can finally sense what your next step should be. This is not a dramatic pause. It is a gentle one, a small space that protects you from chasing every fear or desire that rises inside. As time passes, you start to notice how different life feels when you wait for that small moment of clarity. An argument softens, a craving loosens its grip, a decision becomes simpler because it is no longer driven by urgency. You feel yourself returning to the center of your own mind, instead of being pulled by whatever emotion shouts the loudest. And in that return, you discover a kind of inner room, a space where your thoughts and feelings can breathe before you choose what to do with them. Stillness shapes that room. Stillness turns confusion into direction. Stillness reminds you that the world outside cannot rush the person you are becoming inside. What we rarely admit is that most of our mistakes come from moving too soon, reacting too fast, trying to escape discomfort instead of understanding it. But when you choose stillness first, even for a moment, you give yourself the chance to act with strength instead of fear. And this strength, once grounded, needs direction. That is where the next rule begins. Rule 3 reminds us of something simple, but often forgotten. Train the mind like a muscle. Not through force, not through perfection, but through steady repetition that slowly shapes who you are becoming. Just as the body grows stronger with consistent effort, the mind grows clearer when you return to the same small practices, again and again. Reading a few pages with full attention, breathing deeply before you speak, staying with one task when the world tries to pull you in 5 different directions. These moments may seem small, but then, over time, they become the quiet weight that builds your inner strength. In truth, mental mastery is not a sudden change. It is a slow unfolding, a gentle strengthening of your ability to stay present when your thoughts want to wander. At first, it feels fragile. You sit to focus, and the mind slips away. You try again, and it slips once more. But what we rarely admit is that this slipping is part of the training. Each return, each choice to come back, is another repetition, another lift, another small victory that reshapes the way your mind works. You are not failing, you are conditioning. As time passes, these repetitions begin to add up. You start to feel a subtle steadiness inside you, a kind of mental balance that doesn't disappear with the first distraction. Your thoughts become less chaotic. Your decisions feel clearer, more grounded. The world outside may stay loud, but the world inside becomes calmer because you have practiced meeting it with intention. And slowly, you begin to trust yourself. You begin to sense that your mind can hold its shape even when life pulls at it from all sides. This is the hope that grows from disciplined repetition, the hope that you can become someone who does not break under pressure, but strengthens through it. What we rarely admit is that true discipline is easier when you are honest with yourself about where you stand and what you avoid, because training the mind is only half the work. The next rule reveals the power that comes when discipline meets inner honesty. Rule 4 asks for something few of us truly welcome. Confront the truth you avoid. Distraction is often a disguise. It pulls you toward busyness, noise, or comfort, so you don't have to sit with the things you fear, your doubts, your insecurities, the desires you have not admitted, even to yourself. At first, facing these truths feels heavy, uncomfortable, as if the weight of your own mind presses down on your chest. You want to turn away, to scroll, to escape, to pretend they do not exist. But then the very act of avoidance is what makes life feel fragmented. It is what keeps you from knowing who you really are. In truth, courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to sit with it, to look clearly at the parts of yourself you have hidden. A warrior does not run from the shadow within. He meets it, he names it, he sees it without flinching. And in that simple recognition, there is power. What we rarely admit is how much of our inner chaos comes from the lies we tell ourselves. The half-truths, the excuses, the silent agreements to stay small or distracted. Each time you look away, the shadow grows. Each time you face it, the shadow shrinks. As time passes, you begin to notice something subtle. The more you allow yourself to confront the truths you avoid, the lighter your inner world becomes. Thoughts feel clearer, decisions less entangled, and the restless pull of distraction weakens. You realize that discomfort is not the enemy. It is the doorway, the path toward clarity, toward discipline, toward an inner space that is simpler and cleaner because it is unburdened by denial. Sitting with what is hard becomes a practice, a way to carve order out of the mess of your own mind. And slowly, you feel the shift. The courage grows quiet and steady. The mind becomes a place where honesty reigns, where you are no longer fleeing, where you can finally act from truth instead of illusion. This is the threshold that leads to the next stage of mastery, where strength finds direction and clarity becomes purpose. Rule 5 asks you to do something both simple and profound. Simplify your inner world. In the quiet moments, you begin to notice how many thoughts crowd your mind, how many desires pull at you in every direction, how many small obligations steal the space you need to think clearly. Each one alone seems harmless, but together they blur your vision, scatter your energy, and leave you moving through life in a haze. You chase tasks, entertain worries, and carry burdens that were never yours to hold. And then, slowly the mind becomes noisy, restless, fragmented. In truth, strength is born in space, not in clutter. A warrior does not hoard thoughts or chase every impulse. He releases what does not serve him, what does not sharpen him, what does not matter in the quiet measure of his own life. What we rarely admit is how much of our energy vanishes in the small, unnecessary things we cling to. Old habits, unresolved grudges, distractions disguised as necessity. Letting go does not feel easy at first. It feels empty. It feels like losing something familiar. But then, as you clear one layer and another, a subtle freedom appears. The room inside you stretches. The air feels lighter. You remember what it is like to breathe without weight pressing down. As time passes, simplicity begins to change the way you move through your day. Decisions feel lighter. Focus comes without struggle, and the mind grows steady as it sheds the constant pull of the unessential. There is a quiet joy in this clearing, a kind of nostalgia for the energy you used to have, the clarity you sometimes glimpsed when life slowed for a moment. This is not about avoiding responsibility or passion. It is about choosing the soil you plant in. Removing the weeds allows the roots of discipline and focus to grow deep and strong. And in that open space, you begin to sense the next step. With a lighter mind, you can finally direct attention without distraction, build rituals that endure, and create unbreakable focus. The simplicity you cultivate now prepares the ground for the strength and precision the next rule will reveal. Rule 6 asks you to step into the quiet power of repetition. Build rituals that shape your identity. The small things you do each day, when done with attention and intention, begin to define who you are before anyone else can tell you. A morning spent breathing, noticing the body and the mind. An evening spent reflecting on what passed, what mattered, what could be improved. An hour devoted to one task without hurry or distraction. Each of these actions, repeated over time, becomes a thread in the fabric of your character. They are not obligations. They are invitations to become the person you want to be. In truth, discipline is less about force than about structure. It is not something you chase. It is something you live, quietly, consistently, until the shape of your day forms the shape of your mind. What we rarely admit is how comforting this can feel. When the world pulls you in 1,000 directions, these rituals act as a stable center, a place where your attention can rest, and your choices are guided not by urgency, but by intention. The mind begins to trust itself. The body begins to move in rhythm with purpose. You begin to notice a subtle confidence growing, one that does not boast, but quietly steadies every thought, every action. As time passes, the effect of these small routines becomes more profound. You find that moments of clarity and focus are no longer rare. They are cultivated, invited, expected. You feel a sense of ownership over your life because you have built it piece by piece, moment by moment, through conscious repetition. There is a warmth in this consistency, a groundedness that comes from knowing who you are in the ordinary, hidden parts of your day. Identity is no longer abstract, it is tangible, it is lived. And as these rituals root themselves, they prepare you for what comes next. The final rule is not a new technique. It is the integration of everything you have learned. The moment when awareness, stillness, discipline, honesty, simplicity, and ritual converge. The rule that brings the entire warrior code together, shaping a mind that is calm, focused, and unshakable. Rule 7 brings us to the quiet heart of mastery. Return to yourself in every moment. Life pulls you in 1,000 directions. Thoughts race, responsibilities press, emotions rise and fall. And yet, no matter how far you drift, you always have the power to come back. A breath, slow and deliberate. A pause to notice the body. A simple acknowledgement of what is true in this moment. Each return is small, almost invisible, but together they form the steady rhythm of presence. This is not control through force. It is control through return, through repeated choice, through the gentle discipline of awareness. In truth, we lose ourselves more often than we realize. We chase what is urgent and forget what matters. We react before we see, speak before we understand, move before we notice. And yet, every time we notice the drift, every time we bring ourselves back, we reclaim a piece of clarity, a piece of calm. What we rarely admit is how much strength lives in this simple act. Not in perfection, not in never slipping, but in the willingness to return again and again, without judgment, without haste, without harshness. Each return is a quiet act of courage, a declaration that we are present in our own lives, shaping ourselves with intention instead of being carried by circumstance. As time passes, these moments of return accumulate. They form a subtle stability within, a mind that no longer collapses under distraction. You begin to recognize the space between stimulus and reaction, the pause where choice resides, the moment where your attention meets your intention. Life may remain unpredictable, the world may remain noisy, but your inner presence becomes a calm center, unshakable yet flexible, ready for whatever comes next. Clarity grows not in isolation, but in these repeated returns, in these small acts of mindful grounding. And in this quiet mastery, you understand that the warrior code is not a set of rules to obey. It is a lifelong path, a conversation with your own mind, a gentle shaping of who you are becoming. Each time you choose presence over distraction, each time you return to yourself, you build a life of calm, strength, purpose, and clarity. Let this be the practice you carry forward. Subscribe now to continue walking this path, and let the journey of presence guide every step you take.